Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name is Bob Harron, and today we have an interview with Casey Evans regarding Hannibal, the potential signing of Hannibal Mejbri from Man United. So, with that being said, we'll just get started.
It's the Rangers Journal night.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's Rangers Journal. As I said, my name is Bob Harron, and we are here today with Casey Evans to talk about the potential signing of Hannibal Mejbri. So, first of all, welcome, Casey. Thanks very much for giving up your time today.
Oh no, thank you for having me on. It's nice to be here. Nice to talk about Hannibal, a player that I'm sure people are slightly excited about coming to Rangers. I'm not sure. I've not seen much of the talk about it, but obviously, I'm going to get into why I think that might be a good move for him. But spoil it there.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. No problem. We'll get into it just momentarily. So, I understand he's a 21-year-old Tunisian. I think his contract's coming to the end at the end of next season, or is it this season? I'm not too sure. But yeah, it looks like an attacking midfielder, but he can also play right side. It looks like an exciting prospect. Obviously, there's some rumours going around up here in Scotland that he's due to joining us for the start of the season. But I think just to start, probably best handing over to yourself just to give us maybe a bit of a more in-depth player breakdown and what he's like.
So yeah, Hannibal's a very interesting player. Obviously, he was signed by United during that kind of period where they signed quite a lot of young players from academies. Obviously, he was, I think, the most expensive of the bunch, but obviously, Kambwala, Garnacho, Gerardo, a load of other young players were signed with the intention of they would be developed in the United Academy and then brought into the first team. Now, obviously, Garnacho, that's worked out for Kobe Mainoo, who was kind of already at the club, but in that sort of bracket of they thought he would make the first team, has made it. It hasn't really turned out for Hannibal. That's for a lot of different reasons, I think. Obviously, he's not really developed, I don't think, the way that United hoped he would have done. That's not to say it's a bad way, and I'm not saying putting that on the player. I think United have been a bit hit and miss with their development of youth players. But we have obviously had some really big hits. But I think Hannibal was a bit of a weird one in terms of he ended up in this weird loan cycle that we've ended up doing, which I think you had Ahmad a couple of years back. He obviously came halfway through the season and he kind of struggled a bit. He was good. He did show flashes, I think, but he struggled a bit. Yeah, am I right in saying?
Yeah, I think, for that kind of 6-month period he was with us, I think the circumstances probably didn't help him, Casey, that when he came in, he was kind of thrown in to one of the Old Firm games and didn't really kind of perform that well, which kind of put him on the back foot with the supporters. I think he came in towards the end of that kind of 6-month period towards the end of the season and performed quite well. Again, obviously, I know that he scored against us in the recent friendly at Murrayfield, so it was obviously nice to see him getting some minutes, and I'm hopeful that he'll perform well for Man United this season. But yeah, for us that period of time, you could see he was still a wee bit of a raw talent, but I'm hoping it stands him in good stead for the rest of his United career. And again, I had a wee look into Hannibal's background. I know, as you said, he's had a few loans here, there, and everywhere. I think the most recent one was at Sevilla. So again, I don't know if you want to go into that just to see how he kind of got on there. Did he get a lot of playing minutes? Was he kind of instrumental in their team for that period, or was it kind of something slightly different?
I mean, the short answer is no. Probably is the issue. So basically, I think the problem with Hannibal is United don't know he doesn't know what sort of player he wants to be. That's probably due to developmental issues, and also in terms of he does have a very interesting skill set that doesn't really apply to a very certain role that many teams have. And also, I think that one of the issues is he's very clearly could work out as a number 10 at a side, but the problem is that at United there is not many minutes going at number 10. That is part of the issue. He obviously we have Bruno Fernandes. He is the captain. He plays every game. I think he only just missed a game last season, so he wasn't really getting minutes. So obviously he played a couple of games. He scored a really nice goal, I think, against Brighton. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think it was a very quite nice finish. He scored a couple of nice goals. But obviously that meant we needed to get him some loan minutes. So I think he spent some time in the Championship with Birmingham. He kind of did all right there. I think Birmingham fans quite liked him. He's got a lot of fight about him, I think, Hannibal. Okay. That's something that really... So in Old Firm games, you'll love him because he'll absolutely kill people. I mean, but then when he's getting sent off like second game of the season, you're like, well, maybe tone it back a bit or save it for someone we actually want you to kick. Okay. I think that was what happened at Sevilla. I think he had a very early game. I can't remember if he had a red card or not. It might have been a red card. He had a red card for a very stupid tackle because he really does. He really is a scrapper. I think that needs to be enunciated. Like, he's a technically fantastic player, but he has got a little bit of a fight about him. And I think he fell out with the management. So because of that, and I think he only played about 5 games then across his time at Sevilla. So he didn't really get that many minutes. But I think in terms of the player, obviously you said he's played attacking midfield. He's played on the right. I think he's played on the right wing. He's played on the left wing. That's part of United trying to find places for him. He's played a little bit deeper. I think probably his best position is kind of that number 8 that plays a bit further forward, kind of like in the final third. So obviously you give the ball to him in the final third, and he's very good at carrying it forward in those like tighter spaces. He's got a really good eye for a pass. He's got a really good technical ability about him. He does have a decent shot on him as well. I think that's a good thing. Sure. But obviously, I'd partner him definitely with someone a little bit more defensive, a little bit more defensive minded. Okay. I mean, I don't know how Rangers play. This is probably something that you could talk to me about. It's like a 3-man midfield. I think he'd do really well as the sort of more creative 8.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment we're kind of playing a 4-2-3-1. So I mean, even if he was, it depends, as you said. I don't know whether he's kind of been earmarked for the number 10. That again, there's still quite a lot of, say, rumours going around between who's going to come in and who's going to go out in that position for Rangers. But I think at the moment the two that would kind of sit in would be Connor Barron and Diamandi, who we brought in January. And again, it might be a case of they might rotate between those 3. If it goes a flat 3, then again, I can probably see him playing with Diamandi and Barron and being that kind of forward 8, as you said, which again would be quite interesting because it would change the style of play that Clermont's playing, or obviously with the formation, if it's going to be more of a flat 3 rather than a 2 and then a 3 with 2 wingers. So yeah, but it's quite interesting. It's if you're not saying he's a kind of out and out number 10, he's more of an 8. I think we definitely need a player like that. I think based on the signings we've made so far, there's probably not a clear candidate to kind of fill in for that role. We've probably lacked that in the last couple of years since probably Scott Arfield left, and again he was mid-30s when he left. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how if he fits in, if he obviously does sign for us. And to me, so what do you think more so? I know you touched on his kind of temperament. Would that be his major weakness or flaw in his game that he's maybe easily wound up?
I'd say so. I'd say like he's not easily wound up. He kind of winds himself up, I think, is probably half the issue. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Like if you get a manager who can hone it quite well, he is a very good player. Like obviously he'll press, he'll run about for you, he'll put the hard yards in. Like I said, he'll play an 8. And I would say you need someone a little bit more defensive who will sit behind him because of just how he likes to get forward. But he will definitely make sure that the centre-backs aren't getting time on the ball, or the midfielder trying to receive it off the centre-backs will not get time on the ball because he'll hound them for it. Yeah, you need to stop him from like making a foul when he does that, but he does. Sure. He will definitely put the hard yards in. And I know I said he's not. I haven't seen him play as a 10, and obviously, like I don't know if he has the sort of what I would look for in a number 10 is probably not what he has as a skill set. Sure. So that's probably why I'd say he played more as sort of like an 8, but he probably can do a job at a 10 as the 10. And obviously, like if formations are getting even more fluid as you probably know, like it's probably, you say it's a 4-2-3-1, but it will change to a 4-3-3, or it'll change to a 4-4-2 or whatever, it just as the game's being played. But I think the 8 probably is better, because I do think he likes to drift out to the left quite a lot. I think obviously he likes that like half channel between like the striker and the left winger, and that's like where he likes to occupy. So that's why I'd probably say him about there. But I do think that's probably receiving the ball deeper and his temperament. Receiving the ball deeper is probably one of the things I'd say, because he does like to carry it. And I don't think he's got the sort of, like, you know, the sort of midfielders you look for, where like they can pick the ball, turn around, run through the midfield and sort of thing. It's very few and far between. United are very lucky that they found one in Manu, but like there's not many midfielders who can do it that well and can do it consistently. So I think that he's not too good at that. And I think he obviously can lose the ball a little bit if he receives it too deep. But yeah, I think the temperament is probably the one thing that is kind of, it's a double-edged sword. It's endearing and it's great to watch, and it's nice to watch someone who actually cares and fights for the team. And then sometimes he can properly take it to another team, but obviously sometimes he can take it really too far. So
sure. I get that, Casey. I think, as you said, that you know, probably for Rangers, if he is that kind of emotional player to a degree, as you say, if he gets himself wound up for games, you know, he's probably one of those players that can easily go one way or the other. He can, you know, be really dynamic, as you said, maybe in that kind of preferred 8 slot. But again, you can maybe teeter on the brink between being really enthusiastic or really, you know, aggressive to the point, you know, you're then potentially getting booked or sent off. So that, again, that's quite an interesting point. I'm sure Rangers fans will love him if he comes. If he performs like that on a weekly basis, again, they might turn quickly if he starts getting, you know, booked and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it'll be quite interesting. I know we touched on.
Sorry, I was saying to end on a positive note. Like, he was genuinely considered the most talented player that we signed of that crop of players that I mentioned earlier. Like, he obviously has the talent, and he has shown it in flashes. I think the thing is that he's just had a regular sort of spells at these clubs that Birmingham was probably the ones that trusted him the most, but probably at the time weren't really a team that were trying to like hone a young player's talents. They were just basically like saying, he's a player with some ability, get him in the midfield, get him playing. But they really didn't like him by the end of it. He really did show there that what he could do. And I think since then he has kind of stopped and started with United, trying and implement him in, but not actually finding a way. And then obviously Sevilla's spell was pretty much, to put it kindly, a disaster. Like, he didn't get the minutes at all. He obviously didn't get any sort of playing time. Like, that didn't really work out for him.
Yeah.
So I do think if he gets regular minutes at Rangers, he gets some time playing, he gets to know his teammates, he gets to play some more, you'll see what he can do, because he genuinely is a very talented player.
Yeah. Maybe just touching on that, Casey. So is he kind of two-footed? Is it kind of preferred to be, as you said, if he's on the left side, is he kind of left-sided, or, you know, is he, you know, a bit more, you know, kind of say ambidextrous with both feet, or do you think he's kind of got a preferred side that he likes to play off of?
I think he's played on both wings for United, so I definitely have seen him do stuff with both feet. Obviously, like, this is the thing. Like, I watched him play for Birmingham when he played for Birmingham, but that seems like so long ago now. Like, I've seen him in flashes, and he's definitely, like, in 6 minutes he's done some stuff, and he's done some nice stuff. But I haven't really seen a player that, when you're very young, seeing a player 2 years, like, from between 18 and 20, a player can change completely. And I think that's a big thing. Like, I think obviously I saw him play a lot at 19. I haven't seen him play that much now at 21. I could say he's a completely different player. He could be a different thing. But he has played on both wings for United. He has played through the middle. He definitely gets about the pitch, and he knows how to pick out a pass when he gets on the ball. So I would say that he probably can do it with both feet. Like, I'm taking a guess there, but I'm taking an educated guess off the limited things I've said.
Sure, no, I understand, Casey. I think it was just more when you were saying about, you know, if he likes to kind of drift into that kind of mid channel between the left hand side and the midfield. It was, I don't know if it, you know, if he prefers to have that on his, you know, if that's his stronger side or not. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. And again, just when you were touching on the Birmingham loan, I guess that was really when you said his most consistent period of football recently. And again, that's obviously a couple of years ago now. did he play quite a lot for Birmingham during his loan?
Yeah, he did. I think he got a few red cards, definitely at the time there. I think, but Birmingham fans loved him. I talked to a few Birmingham fans during that time, and they absolutely loved him. Like, as I said, they loved him for the fight he showed. They loved him because he actually was technically good on the ball and everything. Like, he actually put in some good shifts. I think he scored a couple of nice goals, like got a few assists. Like, he genuinely did endear himself to that fan base, and I think they would have had him back if it wasn't for the fact that we wanted to kind of move him up to a different like class. I think would say we were looking for Premier League loans, we're looking for European loans, we're looking for teams in Europe and so on and so forth. So, but they would have had him back in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that he can do the same for Rangers, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get that, and I think, I mean, even just kind of looking back on that time, if it was, a kind of full year that he had on loan, I think for me personally, it'll be interesting if it's just a straight loan or if it's a loan with an option to buy or an obligation to buy. I know that he's, as I said, kind of coming to the end of his Man United contract. So maybe just for that, do you think he'll maybe sign an extension before heading out on loan, or do you think this is kind of probably the last stand before he potentially leaves Man United?
I don't know, to be honest, because I don't know if it's in the players' court. I think he would sign an extension because he does like United, and obviously if we thought we could probably get, because I think the idea is to move him on, because obviously I don't think he's going to get minutes in the next few years at United. That's probably the case. There's Bruno Fernandes at number 10, Kobe Mainoo, and is in the midfield, and we'll probably get a defensive midfielder, which Hannibal isn't. Left wing, right wing, both are kind of sorted, or have players in his way that are probably more considered highly rated at United, like Amad Garnacho, Rashford, so on and so forth. So I think that probably the club will look to move him on. And also, I think the ownership are now taking the stance of, we're not letting people just absolutely run down their contracts anymore. We saw that with Cambuala recently. Like, he played last season, he played really well for United, but he was in the final year of his contract and he wanted to be a starter, so he wasn't signing a new one. So we immediately sold him to Villarreal. So I think that maybe there might be an option inserted in there. Obviously, it depends on the price, I'm guessing, for you as well, in terms of whether that is agreed, or it might just be a straight loan, and then they see next season where he wants to go, whether his stock's risen or dropped. Sure. It'll have risen. I'm going to be positive. He's going to rise. He's going to play really well. He's going to be great for Rangers.
Yeah. Hopefully, if he comes, he's a star performer, and then that hopefully, either puts us in a strong position to keep him, or if he goes elsewhere, then it obviously helps probably bump up his prices as well. But I think that was really everything I wanted to cover, Casey. Is there anything else that you want to kind of relay out to the Rangers fans about Hannibal at the moment, before we kind of wrap things up?
I'd just like to say, just get behind him. Like, I think he'll have his stumbles. I think he'll probably get. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to put money on it, because why not? But I'd say in his first 5 games, he'll get a red card, and you'll be like, "Oof, why has he done that?" And at that point,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, at that point, do not completely turn on him. It's the little like stabilization period. But I feel like he'll definitely do something where you're like, that was a bit risky. Why did you do that? But I'd hope Clement would definitely be like, just hand on the shoulder, just be like calm it a bit. Like,
sure.
I've seen what you do in training. You're a great player. You're great on the ball. You can really do something for this team, but you have to be on the pitch. So just stop kicking people. But really just get behind him, I think, is probably my plea, because I do think he is a really talented player, and I really want him to see him do well.
Sure. No, I understand that. I think if he does come up to Ibrox, then or Hampden at the moment anyway, for the moment, he'll definitely be backed by the Rangers support again. Just when you were saying that, the one of the first 5 games will be an Old Firm game, Casey, so he might very well be thrown into the
didn't know that.
Of that one. But
maybe I should put money on it.
yeah. I think the just before the international break at the start of September, I think the Old Firm game, it's at Celtic Park as well, so that's definitely a cauldron that he'll be walking into. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting sign if he comes. He sounds as if he's a very energetic player, something that Clermont's trying to put in the team is a bit more energy, a bit more youth. So he definitely sounds as if he's on. He meets up to those standards. But again, it will just need to wait and see if it comes to fruition or not. But yeah, I think that was everything from myself, Casey. Just to let everyone know where we can find you on your socials and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's at Casey Evans. Well, underscores in between the Casey and Evans, and then at the end.
Sure.
And then I have a Substack where I do my writing. Haven't written on it in a while. Need to get back to it. Maybe I'll do something on Hannibal at Rangers halfway through the season, see how it's going on. But yeah, that's Played on Paper. You can find that through my link tree on the Twitter. But yeah, that's basically where you can find me now. That's basically where I do things. So anyway, and thank you for having me on. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, it's been great, and thank you very much for giving up your time to speak about him. It's definitely been a good insight to the player, his temperament, and his preferred position. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him in the royal blue of Rangers. But yeah, just one final thanks, Casey, for giving up your time. I appreciate you coming on for the interview, and we'll end it there by saying every night is a Rangers journal night.
So just a quick thank you to Bob for that absolutely fantastic interview, and thank you to Casey Evans for the info on potential signing Hannibal. Kai, how do you think the interview went?
I thought it was really good, mate. I thought, in terms of what we needed to know, we kind of got everything there. It's kind of what I expected. I've not seen loads of them, but what I've seen in bits is kind of exactly what Casey described. So it was good to hear that kind of what I've read in the stats and what I've seen with my own eyes is kind of what tends to be the case.
Gary, did that give you any insight into the player?
Yeah, I knew very little, if not nothing about him, other than he's quite a easily noticeable character, isn't he? When he's on the pitch, he's quite prominent. So other than, do you know what I remembered of him? There was one thing. It was a game against Liverpool, and you may remember this a year or two ago, and I think they were getting battered off Liverpool 5 or 6-0, and he came on the park and ran about kicking 4 different players within about 30 seconds. And I remember Souness and Keane talking about him afterwards, that he needed to mature. So I think that's literally the only time I'd seen him play before Muddyfield last week. So it was interesting to get that information from Man United's side and some of the attributes he actually has.
Guy, Casey touched upon that Man United, I think it was a relatively big outlay for a batch of young players that they bought at the time, and he says he's not developed as planned. Do you think this is another recovery job for Rangers where they take a player whose career's potentially stagnating and try and inject a wee bit of life in it, or am I being too harsh?
I don't know if because you might be right, mate, but maybe just because of his age that I'm thinking that's not quite the case yet. I think he obviously spoke about the Sevilla loan. He's not really going to get much game time at Man United if he's hoping to be a tenor, if he's hoping to play kind of a bit deeper. Those spots are kind of taken already. He's going to struggle to force his way in. So they obviously thought loaning him to Sevilla was going to be good for him. Like Casey said, there seemed to have been some kind of bust up at the start, which I don't get why at that point you keep the player for that length of time. Surely you can cancel a loan and send them back instead of just holding the player. I think it was 6 appearances in total, 1 start he had. Just a bit of waste of the boys' time as well, which I don't think you can kind of all put on him. Like if they know he's that type of player and it's a red card that's kind of led to that, or a bust up that's led to that, you're surely expecting that when you've scouted a player and you know what you're going to get. So I think it's a bit harsh to hold that against him, and the fact that his progression's kind of stagnated. So I think it's not quite a revival job yet, but I do think he needs to get out there and prove himself, and I think we give him a good kind of opportunity to do that.
Gary, what about you? Do you think this is another player that's coming that is going to use Rangers as a kind of springboard, or do you think there could be some longer term?
I think I'm undecided. Do you know, I think there was lots in that interview that suggested that he's a little bit lost and needing to find a home and finding somewhere that actually they would settle. But there's also a bit of you having a niggle, having had players that have done that numerous times recently. One who's been a transfer request the last couple of days, making you think that is it going to go wrong? So it's a bit of a gamble that way. I think he's 22 later on this year. So he's at a point in his career when he probably needs to take that step. But at the same time, looking at his information, there's nothing wrong with not playing Sevilla. You obviously have ability if you went there on loan. You obviously through the metrics, etc. And he played 41 games for Birmingham. They're not a poor side, so there's obviously attributes there in terms of his quality that we'd be looking at. It's just whether the two things work.
Yep, I'd need to agree on that. Kai, Casey's leaned on that he's got an interesting skill set and he could end up at a number 10 role. Is that something you think this is behind Rangers thinking?
I'd be more interested to know. I know you obviously mentioned he doesn't think there's a specific role for the attributes that he has, but he also mentioned that he didn't think that a 10 would be that, but he never mentioned what it was that he was missing from being a 10. Like, he obviously spoke about his ball carrying from deep. He's maybe liable to lose the ball when I don't know if he's going to be dropping deep as we were used to seeing Lundstrom do last season. I don't know if he's talking about dropping in between the centre halves or just dropping into the other side of the centre circle to pick the ball up. But for what I've seen, he's kind of good at driving forward with the ball. He's a decent passer of the ball. So I don't know what it is that Casey's seen that he's missing from being a number 10. Because when I heard he was linked, I thought it was to be like that attacking number 8 that Casey mentioned. Like, when I've seen him, he's been deep. He's really tenacious, like that kind of aggressiveness you don't see from a lot of number 10. So I never really considered him to be someone for that position. So it'd be interesting to see if that is the case, because personally I really hope we just scrap using a 10, because it's interesting that we're selling a lot of players that play in that position, and apart from Hannibal, all the other centre mids have been linked to either 6s or 8s. So I'm just quite hopeful, to be honest, that we're going to scrap using 10s this season.
Aye, definitely. I think that's all part of the tactical setup. I'm sorry about the background noise. I've got a busy house tonight. See, Casey also says, Gary, that he's played on the wing, all over central midfield, in the 8, the 10. Says he's more of maybe a creative 8. Do you think that's something that would fit into Clement's thinking?
Yeah, I think having no knowledge of what he was like beforehand, what struck me, what I got, was Joe Aribo. Something about when I was listening to some of the skill set, dropping deep, picking up the ball, that ability to drive forward, drifting to the left. That's all those sort of attributes were giving me visions of Joe Aribo, maybe with a temper, as opposed to the way he was more placid. So I think I kind of see it, it's a bit like Kai said, you kind of see him as maybe one of the two, him and Diamonde as the number 8s, with somebody sitting in with the Juan Jordan, or whoever that may be, that comes as this number 6. That's kind of the style you'd see it playing, maybe one off the left, one off the right, and kind of moving about from there. I can't see, we obviously need wingers, we've needed wingers, there's a role there, but I don't think he's that type of driving winger that Clement wants. I may be wrong, or more driving through the centre of the park.
Guy, what about you? It's kind of same question, like a creative 8. Is that something you could maybe see him flourishing in?
I think so, mate. And if we are going to persist with the 10, this is something that Cammy keeps putting in the chat, and I fully agree with him. I'd like to see, if we're going to persist with the 10, have Hannibal play the role that Diamandi's been playing and move Diamandi further forward. Because I do think Diamandi's wasted being sitting deep in a 2. I think Connor Barron's got the energy to buzz about there. I don't know if he's going to be the starting kind of number 6 in there, or if it would be the case of if Jordan came in, or they're looking for someone that is just a defensive unit, just someone that's going to come in and win the ball, keep it simple. Because as much as Barron can do that, I think his skill set, he's got a lot more to his game than just kind of picking the ball up and playing simple passes. But if he was going to come in, I wouldn't mind him swapping and having that Diamandi role and seeing Diamandi further forward, because I don't really fancy any other 10s that are still left at the club to play that position if we're going to keep going with it.
Gary, in the next part of the interview, I found quite interesting. It's probably one of the qualities that I want in my Rangers midfield next season. Casey says that he's got a tendency to wind himself up. He needs a manager that can hone the temper. He can press, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword having him. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts again, we'll go back to Todd Cantwell a little bit. I remember podcasts and I remember people talking this time last year about his his fire in his belly, and what that was one of the things that was actually really positive about him. He got himself worked up in the environment and was able to use that and channel that properly. So I suppose it's got its positives and it's got its negatives. I think there's if you can create that drive and that fire, it's good, but it does also leave a tendency. And there's something about it, so probably negatively, and a misconception is that something about him, when I've seen him and stuff you've talked about, is that he maybe does have a petulant streak, whether that's just as a playing style or whether it's in the attitude as well. That I'd have a slight reservation that if things didn't go his way, the toys may be out the pram as opposed to thriving on it.
Guy, it's something that we spoke about previously in the Birmingham game, that there wasn't enough energy. The manager touched upon it himself. Wasn't enough pressing. We've seen a difference in the second half when Conor Barron came on. He brought a bit of energy on. I think this guy's a kind of no-brainer for the way Clermont's wanting to play.
That was the first thing I said on Twitter, mate, as soon as I seen the link. Like, you're not going to get many midfielders who've got more energy and that are going to press as much as he does. See, if you watch him, it's the one thing you're going to take away. So even if you forget everything he done on the ball, you're going to be like, that boy covered every blade of grass that he could. He got stuck in, never backed out a tackle, and it's something that you expect professional footballers to be able to do. But how many times have we sat with our midfield getting overran and losing 50-50s and not putting any pressure on the ball? Like, especially talking about winding himself up. Like, how many times has it taken Rangers sides in the last 2 years to go a goal down for the Ibrox crowd to boo them off at half time to give them a kick up the arse? Like, you need players that are going to be able to do that for themselves. And going by everything Casey said, like, obviously sometimes you might get a red card here and there, but you need players that have got that fire in their belly, like Todd Cantwell had it occasionally, and you've seen the type of player he could be. But if somebody's got that energy all the time, you'd assume it could be infectious, especially if he's playing with somebody like Conor Barron that's got that energy as well. Like, you're not going to have, say, your two deepest line midfielders running about and everybody else just standing about like they dafties did. Do you know what I mean? You need players that are going to do that are going to be infectious to the rest of the team, because that's obviously what Clermont wants to do. He spoke about it when he was questioned about the shape and that. The only thing he spoke about was the intensity, because he obviously mentioned that the shape didn't change in the second half, but the performance was much better. And one of the few things that changed was Conor Barron coming on. So if you've got two players sitting deep that can do that, I think it makes a massive difference. And again, you shouldn't need to go a goal down to be able to kind of motivate yourself. You shouldn't need to be booed off at half time. You shouldn't need silence at Ibrox to give you that. So having players that can do that for themselves, I think, could be a positive.
Gary, do you think that the support is going to give him the time if we see enough effort and endeavour from the player in the application that when he gets a red card, do you think there's something that we're going to be able to just go, right, well, it's part of his game and we're going to be patient with him like Casey asked?
Yes, I do. And I think that based on the small snippets I've seen, based on what Casey was saying, I think that passion and maybe immaturity that he has, but like a certain Alfredo that maybe left a while ago, that people were drawn to that and were able to maybe support and recognise it in the same way that those players that are maybe a little bit hot-headed, a little bit more emotional, get a little bit more support than the ones that don't. So I think that based on his attributes, he's going to do lots of positive things with maybe the odd stupid thing. And again, like that's not been uncommon for a few of our players over the last couple of years.
I need to agree. I think overall he's going to bring a bit. He's going to bring energy to Midley Park, and that's what we're needing just now. So Kai, he's not going to sign a new contract according to Casey. I've googled it. He is out of contract. This is for the Man United website. He's out of contract at the end of next summer. So, what type of loan is this going to be? Is this going to be a straight loan with a view of speaking to the player, or do you think Man U want a transfer fee? Like, it's a bit of an awkward one, isn't it?
No, it was one of those ones that I looked at and I thought, well, it's not going to be a loan, because who loans out a player that's in the last year of their deal? It doesn't make any sense. That's like when we spoke about trying to get Sima back, and a lot of people are like, oh, getting back in a loan with an option. It's like, you can only do that if he signs another year at Brighton, which I think Brighton might have an option on Sima anyway. But when it comes to Hannibal, like I put a message in the chat earlier, it's obviously just a rumour, don't know where it's came from, but apparently Copenhagen were also interested, and their offer was a 6-month loan with an option to buy in, or an obligation to buy in January, sorry. So that way Man United get rid of the wages for the first 6 months, and then they get a transfer fee in January. Obviously protects them, because obviously Casey spoke about Kwambala and how he got first team minutes last season, but they sold him before they lost him for nothing. So I think that's Man United are trying to protect themselves, and obviously for Copenhagen they're going to try and do that deal because it stops someone else getting the player. So if you agree the 6-month loan, you get him for those 6 months, then that obligation, it's obviously not going to be the kind of money Man United probably wanted when they brought him in with the likes of Garnacho and some of the other players that they mentioned, but it's going to be better than nothing. So we'd assume if that is the type of deal they're looking for, they'd be looking for that with everybody. They're not just going to, it's not going to be a year loan and then we'll just get him for free at the end of it. Man United are going to want something, and that kind of 6-month loan with the obligation to buy it then, I think makes sense for kind of all parties involved.
Gary, kind of same question to you, but are Rangers potentially protecting themselves here by taking them on loan instead of just buying them outright? Because it sounds as if we could just buy them outright, to be honest. We're taking them on loan. If it doesn't work out, we've paid a smaller transfer fee. Do you think it makes sense?
I suppose it's an interesting one because at the end of the day, you pay a loan fee to take somebody. So if you're Hannibal, a loan for a year and Manchester United getting X amount of money might suit all three parties better. Then he's got options at the end of the loan period. Man United have made money this year, and then you've got that case whereby the only person that maybe loses out is Rangers if he does well. So that you can see the logic in the loan fee being high enough that it suits Man United. It doesn't really matter, this 6 months obligation to buy, versus the fact that it also gives Hannibal more options if he does well. So that may be a consideration. If it's to look straightforward loan with an obligation to buy, what would Man United get for 6 months for a player? I don't know. Wouldn't be that high in the 7 figures, I wouldn't think. So I don't think it's going to be significant transfer fees. I imagine that a Man United player that's played at Sevilla and played at Birmingham's wages might be relatively significant still, despite him being young. That might still be a challenge.
Right, so that'll kind of take us to the end of the podcast, gents. So just one last question. Kai, is that a yes or no for you?
I'd 100% on this one. Just the exact type of player we need in there. Connor Barnes gave us a bit of energy. Just imagine what it could be like with having two players with that level of energy there in the middle of the park compared to what we've had to put up with the last couple of seasons. So I'm fully on board with this one.
Cool. Gary, what about you?
Yep, fully on board. 80% will be a success, 20% will crash and burn, and it'll be sent off every week. But no, definitely the potential's there. It'd be, if the opportunity's there, it'd be daft not to explore it.
Well, he's only definitely be on my weekly coupon for a yellow card anyway. I think that's guaranteed. So, gents, I'll just come to you one last time just to thank your listeners. Kai, thanks for coming on, mate.
It's a pleasure as always, mate. It was just nice that I actually turned up at the right time this time and wasn't sitting waiting to go on when you'd already been live for an hour. So I made sure it was on time tonight. But it's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Gary, same to you, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Scott. It was good to find out a little bit more about the player, even if we don't sign him. I knew something now that I didn't know before.
Magic, mate, magic. Right, well, everybody like and subscribe the video, and I think if we don't get an interview on the new signing today, then it will be Monday before you see us, unless we've got a post-match reaction tomorrow, but I've not sent that text out yet, so I'll need to wait and see. Anyway, take care, enjoy your weekend, and remember, every night is Rangers Journal night. Cheers.